Okay, I want to go over how to work up a design of your own in the bird book. And I will say this is probably going to be the most challenging and tedious one of my birds. And the thing is, I'm actually going to go ahead and film a tutorial while you're watching me work on the design. Okay, so here's how you want to go about it. First, you got to ask yourself, what the heck am I making? What do I want? Well, I want to make a peacock. And there's things that I look at. Okay, so blue here, that kind of thing. So what you want to do, there's a lot of detail in a bird. And what you want to do is get it down to bare basics. Okay, so there's blue here, there's a striping here, and black and white. And most of this is green. And the easiest thing I think is going to be to do a duplicate stitch over to get that. Okay, so the other thing I want to know is what is the coloration. I looked at several different pictures. So my suggestion is look at several different pictures so that you get an idea of colors. There's sometimes a peak of orange, sometimes there's not. So I'm going to incorporate that peak of orange. And half the body is actually a bluish green or turquoise color. And you have that blue. So what you want to do is try to get it down to your basics. Don't get too obsessed with the fancy with it. Okay. So the next step is to get it down to a generic basic coloration. Okay. So I've studied my pictures and everything, and I've gotten it down to where it's basic. Half blue, half turquoise, striping here. Striping here. That peak of orange. And then you'll have the tail. And I'm going to do a closed tail because the open tail of the peacock is really big. And I don't think I can quite encompass how big that is being open. And so you can do more with layers on the tail. And I'm going to explain how I come up with this. So we have a basic draw up. Okay, now I do a lot of this in my head, but because I'm trying to give you something visual to understand, you get you a piece of paper like this and you work it up. Okay, so you get your basic drawing down of just bare minimum, not a whole lot of shape. Okay, so I know I need blue, white here, and then the green, and I've made those. Okay. Well, first off, you need to figure out what loom you're using so you know what kind of yarn you need. I'm planning on using a 24 pegs, 3/8 inch gauge yarn. So you can see that. Alright. Now, the yarn I'll need is worsted weight. So here you see several different yarns. And I've got black, white, light orange, the green, a metallic turquoise, and a metallic blue, and a cream. The legs are a cream color, the beak's a cream color, and then there's white in here, which is the reason why I didn't use cream. Okay. You'll see that the light orange get used there, so. And then what I did was I put what I'm going to put those as in the pattern. So black is just going to be B, white is going to be W, light orange is going to be O, metallic green is going to be G, metallic turquoise is going to be T, metallic blue is going to be BL, and cream is going to be C. That's going to be your cut down for what's going to be in the pattern. Okay, so we got our yarns and what we need. The next thing is there anything besides yarn that we're going to need? And that's a yes. Okay. So you have wire legs, kind of like the crane. The crane is actually what I'm going to base a lot of my pattern on. But you have these legs here. Okay, so I want legs like on the crane on my peacock, so I'm going to need 16 gauge wire, and let's see if I can get it to focus in. Okay, you'll want to get the 16 gauge wire. If you're making a lot of the birds, you'll want to get this wire here. Alright, it's stiff and thick. Alright, now if you're making the 5/8 inch gauge version of things, you'll probably want to just use a coat hanger for your legs, but you'll need pliers for that. Okay, so because I'm making it on the 3/8 inch gauge, I'm going to use my 16 gauge wire, and I'm going to use cream yarn to wrap around, but means I'll need to have a hot glue gun. There's some fine details that I'm not going to incorporate in the knitting itself, and I've made note of that. Made note I want to use acrylic paint, and what I'm going to do with that acrylic paint pen, I'm going to blend in this section here. I'm going to add in this line of black here and probably some of the darker areas around the underside. And so that's where I'm going to end up using my cream, is blending that in. Now, when I go in and I'm looking at my tail, I know that I'm not going to actually knit in those circles. What I'm going to do is duplicate stitch the eyes on the tail. That's what I call those, eyes on the tail. So I'm going to duplicate stitch the eyes on the tail with the orange and the blue. Okay. Now, here's where it comes in that I need to figure out my shaping for the bird. Alright, so the body shape is closest to the crane. Okay, so basically when I'm showing you how to do how to actually loom knit this, I'm going to be showing you kind of how to do the crane, so that'll be helpful for you. Okay, so I like the body of the crane. I think that's pretty much what I need right there, as you can see. There's that shape. Here's that shape. The only thing is the neck's going to be probably shorter. There's going to be a slower decrease through here so that it has that more of a fat to narrow. The beak's going to need to be shorter. So you see where I'm doing with this, okay? So you're seeing where I'm making the adjustments, okay? So I write notes on that. So down here, I went through all my birds, and I like my turkey feather on the back that's laid out. I'll show you. So, my turkey, I'm going to do that big tail span right there. Okay, so I'm going to make that in green 3 times. Okay, and I'm just going to layer it and sew it on. That'll make it easier to just get that length. So I'm going to do the turkey tail 3 times and layer it, and I'm going to do it in green. Okay, so for the body, I'm using the crane body, but I'll need to shorten the beak for the most part. I'm going to do the closed wing with the 19 pegs, so they're going to be the longer closed wing, and I'm going to alternate black and white on my rows, but in order to get that peak of orange, I'm going to cast on in orange and work about 4 pegs in orange and then switch up to black and white. So that's what I've decided on my wings. Okay. How the crane works, okay, you start at the tail, which is back here, and you're going to work the body, and then you're going to work half the neck and head, then you work the other half neck and head, and you're going to finish here. So if you follow this, there is your start and your finish, and this is worked in half pieces. That's what this is. This is worked in half pieces. Okay. And so I know that I want to do it that way. Now, and I'm going to start off with turquoise, and shortly after I do my legs, I'm going to switch to the blue. I made a note of that. I definitely want two small rhinestones for the eyes, and I will do this crown. I have some really thin blue wire, and all I'm going to do is use that thin blue wire and like fold it in half and then like hot glue on a seed bead at the tip to create this little crown. Okay, but it's up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to do it that way. This isn't for a child to play with, so the peacock would probably end up being more of a display item. Okay, so I think I have pretty much all of my notes, and that's going to complete this end of this section of the video. This is part 1 of designing your own bird. But I can tell you that if you are looking through the book, you want to look at the shapes and everything like that. And I really do try to break up the patterns so that you know where you're working the head, where you're working the neck, where you're working the body, where you're working, this section here, the legs. That gives you a gauge on where you're at in the pattern. And so that can help you find sections that you personally like, saying, oh, I want to take from here, I want to take from here. So that when you do this design page like this, you can go in and work up your own. I am trying in this book to provide your basic general shape to the majority of birds that you can find pictures of. But you're the one who has to go in and figure out the color changes and where it needs to happen. Now there are some really simple other designs that you can do to create other birds without having to do a full page like this. Okay, so for instance, if you want to do the scarlet tanager, you can use the bunting pattern or you can use the dove pattern. You make the whole body in red short of the beak and the legs, the color that they are, and then the wings are black. So you do the wings up until you are ready to do those last 2 rows, and you do those in red. Sew them on, and you have the scarlet tanager. You can do the same thing for a blue indigo, which is a bunting. You do the same thing. You make it all in blue, and then you do the wings in black, and you do that in black. And then you can add your accents, like I did here, in acrylic paint pen without having to frustrate yourself with changing colors. Okay. So there's a number of things that you can use parts to. For instance, in the book I'm going to show how you do a magpie. The magpie mostly looks like the red-winged blackbird, and so does the, crow. You can make a crow out of the red-winged blackbird and not incorporate any of the color when you do the wings. You can do the magpie by changing the colors up, and I'm going to show you how you do that. And the tail is a little different than on the red-winged blackbird, so most likely I'm going to incorporate the mockingbird tail with the red-winged blackbird's body and head and just change the color. It makes it to where it's easier to do that, and it kind of gives you a clue as to how I've gone about designing the whole bird book. But yes, you have to have a base pattern, and that is what I am providing with this book. So you have a ton of base patterns, base shapes that you can work your way from, and that is generally how I've worked it the whole time. So keep that in mind. You can do a design page like this. I don't tend to. I tend to do it a lot in my head and go from there. So why don't we start working our way to the next video, which is going to be doing a mock-up write-up pattern from what you have in all the different pieces, and I'll show you how to go about that. So it looks like I'm using the turkey pattern and the crane pattern, so I don't have the book yet, but I'll have to print those up so that I can show you how to go in and find those and we're going to work up a mock-up written pattern to work from. Okay, so this is phase 1 of designing a bird that you have found and that you like, and we'll be moving on to how to do a general write-up and then go from there. The link to part 2 will be below.